they have time, they'll gladly respond to your messages. So in case you stop seeing me on calling for lectures sometimes in March, don't go to Mr. Kabiru or don't come to my DM. Are we not having classes? Even when we don't have classes, I will always keep everyone abreast by sending questions. And once you solve, you get my solution. So I've set a plan for myself as regarding these classes. That is why I always take it upon myself to have classes Sundays and Mondays. So by next week, Monday and Sunday, I will not be having class because I'll likely be on transit. So just take note of that. So tonight, let me just share the live streaming link to the WhatsApp group. Yes, I gave assignment last week. I think last week. Yes, that should be submitted. The assignment should be submitted by tomorrow, 24th. That is the deadline for submission. Some people have submitted and have responded to some of the questions, not all the questions. Let me make it clear. Yes, responded to some of the questions, not all. So if you've not solved, try and solve. It's for your own good. And by the more you solve questions, the more you get better. So by the time you solve one question, two questions, and you say, I'm done with this topic, that is not it. So on budgeting is a very important topic that you need to read. You read from the study pack and solve questions. For example, we have this topic being tested, has always been tested in March through July 2020, question 2. We have a question on budgeting, May 2021, question 2B again. We have a question on budgeting, and also May 2022, question 2, question 6, question 7 is on budgeting. We have November 2023, question 3 is likewise on budgeting. So budgeting is a wide topic in conjunction with variance. These are topics that you need to read and understand them. So please do well. There's nothing that is difficult, except you want it difficult. Yes, at first, when you read a question, it might look as if it's difficult, but pick up the courage and read. Read and read over it again, and you discover that you'll be able to untie the silent issues in the question. By the time you just see paragraphs of sentences, and you say, what is this again? Even before reading to the end, you've defeated yourself. That is not good. So when you see questions, try and read, be bold, develop confidence, and you overcome this course, performance management. When you exercise fear, means you listen to what people say about performance management, might not go far. You might tend to give up easily. So in order not to give up, you must tell yourself that if others can pass PM, I will pass it. Yes, tonight, going straight to the question. Question is on flexible budgets. Is on flexed budget, rather. Flexed budgets. Is on flex budget. I'll be saying some things you can write. Yes, the question is on flexed budget. So a flex budget is a version of flexible budget. Take note, is a version of flexible budget that is adjusted to match the actual activity level. The actual activity. Take note of this sentence. That sentence will be your driving force. By the time you miss the literature, solving flex budgets will be difficult. So you must understand the literature. So a flex budget I said is a version of flexible budget that is adjusted to match the actual level of activity achieved during a period. Yes. So when you want to flex a budget, you flex
Sir,
a
please
budget.
repeat the details.
So I said a flex budget, though it's on the screen, but I'm saying it in another way. Yes, I'm saying it in another way. I'm speaking to the slide, but in another way. So let me just repeat what I've said. That a flex budget is a version of flexible budget that is adjusted to match the actual.
So we can't see your screen, sir.
We can see it.
I can see his
I can
screen.
see you. We can see.
You can see it. Check your network.
I can see
I think
very well.
You can
Please,
see it.
please, once you can't see my screen, check your network. I've stated earlier on, if I'm using phone, my data from my phone, I'll know that here it is mine. I'm not connecting with my phone. My network is see. So
Thank you. I can see it
reasonable.
now. Thank you.
So once you don't see my screen, just check your own network to avoid. I just want to have a swell time in this class. I don't want all those can't see my screen. In case you don't understand anything, you go back to the YouTube. Let me state it categorically. Once you miss any point, you go back to the YouTube. Now, I'll make sure I explain every step clearly. So once you are trying to draw me back, don't feel bad. When I tell you, please go back to the YouTube and watch. Yes. So a flex budget is a version of a flexible budget that is adjusted to match the actual level of activity achieved during a period. Why flex budget? Why flex budget? Why this headache again? One, it helps in performance evaluation by providing a more accurate comparison between actual results and budgeted figures at the same activity level. It means you have a budgeted activity level. Now, the budgeted activity level might be 10,000 units. The actual activity level now results into 12,000 units. So in order to see a better comparison between the budget and the actual, you flex the budget in comparison in relation to the actual level of activity, to the actual unit produced, or to the actual sales revenue. You flex the budget in that regard. So one thing we must know in flexing the budget, you must be able to identify your fixed cost. You must be able to identify your variable cost in a question. And fixed costs are costs that remains constant. Variable costs change with activity levels. Now, how do you adjust your variable cost for actual activity? How do you adjust variable cost? Your budgeted variable cost, how do you now adjust it to suit your actual activity level? What do? You determine where the question didn't give you the variable cost per unit and they gave you as a whole, you will need to determine the variable cost per unit of your budget. Now, what will you now do? Multiply variable cost per unit of your budget by actual activity level. For example, if your labor rate overall in your budget is 20,000 and you produce 10,000, you've budgeted 10,000 units. It means labor rate per unit will be what? 20,000 naira divided by 10,000 units. You get the labor rate per unit. So also, once you get that labor rate per unit, you multiply that rate per unit by the actual activity level. by the actual activity level. It means you have flexed that labor in relation to the actual activity level. It's not difficult. There are so many questions on flex budget in the ICANN Pathfinder. So by Discover students most times, because they don't have the basic understanding of this literature, they see it as something ambiguous. It is not. So you always see it in combination with variance. So to calculate flex budget, you must identify your fixed and variable cost. And for you to adjust your variable cost for actual activity, you multiply variable cost per unit by actual level, by the actual level. So without much ado, okay, let me speak to my slider. A flex budget is a type of budget that is adjusted based on actual levels of activity, unlike a fixed budget, which remains unchanged regardless of actual output. A flex budget varies depending on factors such as sales volume, production levels, or other business activities. So we have key features of a flex budget. Adjust to actual activity levels. So instead of using static estimates, that is the budgeted estimate, a flex budget recalculates costs and revenues based on actual performance. Now, actual result, actual level of activity, actual performance is the key word there, is the subject matter of flex budget. So more accurate performance evaluation is another reason for flex budget, since it considers actual business condition. It provides a better basis for comparing budgeted plus actual results and separates fixed and variable costs. Variable costs like raw material are adjusted based on actual activity, while fixed costs like rent remain unchanged. So in summary, flex budget is rewriting the budget for actual level of activity. Flex budget is you rewriting the budget to suit the actual level of activity. So it is used for control purposes. That is, you compare actual with flex to determine the variance. So can somebody read this question? Let's solve.
A company a company has prepared the following fixed budget for the coming year. Sales 10,000 units. Production 10,000 units. Direct material $50,000. Direct labor $25,000. Variable overheads $12,500. Fixed overheads $10,000. Budgeted selling price 10 per unit. At the end of the year, the following costs had been incurred for the actual production of 12,000 units. Direct material $60,000. Direct labor $28,500. Variable overhead $15,000. Fixed overhead $11,000. The actual sales were 12,000 units for $122,000. Prepare a flexed budget for the actual activity for the year. B. Calculate the variance between actual and flexed budget and summarize in a form suitable for management. Use a marginal costing approach.
All right, thank you very much. Yes. Now, the key word again, use marginal costing approach. We all know what marginal costing is if you've been following up with this class. when we treated cost volume profit analysis, we laid more emphasis on the issue of marginal costing. And marginal costing, we said, is a cost accounting technique where only variable costs, such as direct material, direct labor, and variable overheads are considered when calculating the cost of products. So while fixed costs are treated as period costs and charged directly to profit or loss account. So the marginal costing is primarily used for decision making, for profit analysis, and for price determination of price. So when we talk about marginal costing, the concept of contribution must come to our mind. And we've established that contribution is sales minus variable costs, or contribution is what? Fixed cost plus profits. We've established that when we solve limiting factor, we've seen scenarios where we are not giving maybe selling price and variable cost, and we're giving these two elements, fixed cost, we're giving profits. So we can use these two variables to determine our contribution. Now, to quickly solve this, our budgeted sales is 10,000 units, and we also budget to produce 10,000 units. Now, direct materials budgeted cost 50,000, direct labor 25,000, variable overhead 12,500, fixed overhead 10,000. Now, let me say something about overhead. I discover sometimes students find it difficult to differentiate between overhead and variable cost. While we were treating CVP, yes, I discovered some people ask me questions privately on the issue of variable cost and overhead. So, and that is why we solve a question that involves cost separation, where in a question where we're giving just production overhead, when we're giving admin and selling overhead, and it is not stated that it is variable overhead, it is not stated that it is fixed overhead. So you need to test and see if the production overhead consists of fixed and variable elements, or if it is solely variable overhead or solely fixed overhead. So please always take note. There's difference between variable cost and overhead, and you must definitely know that. So you can read more about that. So we have variable overhead 12,500, fixed overhead 10,000. The budgeted selling price $10 per unit. Take note of that. At the end of the year, the following costs have been incurred. This is the actual now. Actual production 12,000 units. Actual expenses in relation to direct materials, direct labor, variable overhead, fixed overhead, sum up to $114,500. Now the actual sales were 12,000 units. I believe we all have the question. Let's quickly solve this. Now, that we should apply the concept of marginal costing approach. We'll quickly apply that. We'll apply that. Now, let's show our fixed budget. Our fixed budgets, we want to get our contribution in relation to fixed budgets, and we'll get our contribution, likewise profit in fixed budget and actual budget. Then we'll now determine our flex budget. Let's just see how we flow in the course of this fixed budget. Let's see flex budgets. Let's see the actual results. Now, in relation to the question, what will our revenue be for the budgeted sales? The revenue in this question, budgeted revenue will be what? because we want to get our contribution, and contribution is sales minus variable cost. Now, because we're not giving all this in units, we'll solve in total. So it will be revenue less total variable cost. So the revenue in this question will be what?
100,000. 100,000.
Okay.
100,000 times 10.
Yes, thank you. It will be 100,000. Everybody see it. Budgeted selling price is what? $10 per unit. Budgeted selling price, $10 per unit. How many units have we made? Have we planned to produce and have we planned to sell? We plan to sell 10,000 units. So if we are able to sell the whole 10,000 units, 10,000 units multiplied by 10 will give you the revenue. So let's quickly have it. Revenue for fixed budget will be 100,000. Take note of this. Now, in terms of the variable cost, we just quickly take the figures: direct material, direct labor, variable overhead as the variable cost. The fixed overhead is not a variable element. Take note. The fixed overhead is not a variable element. So by the way, let me ask, what are fixed overhead? Fixed overhead. Okay. Let me just quickly talk about that. Fixed overhead refers to indirect cost that remains constant regardless of production volume or business activity levels. So these are costs that do not vary with changes in outputs and must be paid even if no production takes place. So now the variable element now is variable costs. In terms of the fixed budgets, we have material. It's 50,000. We have labor. Labor is 25,000. And also we have the variable overhead. Variable overhead, we have it as 12,500. Now, the total variable cost will be what?
87,500.
Yes, it will be 87,500. $87,500. Now, the contribution will be what?
12,500.
So the contribution will be revenue less total variable cost.
So,
Contribution will be revenue less. Let me make this A. That I will not get too much questions. And let me make this B. So contribution is equal to A minus B. And that will give us what? 12,500. Now, can we get our profits in this question? Can we get our profits for the fixed budget?
Yes.
The answer is yes. We
Yes.
can get our profits because
Wow.
profit is contribution less fixed cost. Now,
Fixed cost, less fixed cost.
so to get our profits, contribution less fixed cost, the value of fixed cost is what? It's 10,000.
10,000.
So once you less, you have your profits. Profits will be what? Budgeted?
2,500.
2,500. Yes. So this is still very easy. Now, let's go to the actual before we come to the flex. Actual. Actual. The revenue based on our actual sales is what?
32,000.
120,000.
It's clearly stated in the question. The actual sales were 12,000 units for 122,000. It means when you sell 12,000 units, the revenue accrued to you will be 122,000. So revenue in terms of actual is 122,000. The variable cost material, the question, it's 60,000. Labor is 28,500. And variable overhead is what? It's 15,000. So the difference between this revenue and this total variable cost will be what? The total of these will give us what? It should be 103,500. 103,500. So the contribution will be what? Should be 18,500.
500.
Yes. So the fixed cost in the question, fixed overhead, 11,000 for actual. Less 11,000. And that will give us what? The profit
7,500.
7,500. So let's move to the flexed. Let's move to the flex budget. Now we define flexed budgets. We define flex budget as a budget that is adjusted to match actual level of activity. In the question, our actual production is what? Actual production is what?
12,000 units.
12,000 units. 12,000.
Yes. Please, in every flexed question, always determine or know your actual production or sales. It's very important. Once you can identify that, you are good to go. Now, we want to determine our flexed revenue. Flexed revenue. Now, since you've identified your actual level of activity, your actual level of activity or your actual production in relation to the sales, to the budgeted sales per unit, will give you your flexed revenue. So, going to the question, your budgeted selling price per unit is what?
$10 per
$10.
unit. $10 per unit.
$10 per unit.
$10 per unit. So $10 multiplied by your actual unit produced will give you your flexed revenue. Your flexed revenue, because your sales is also 12,000 units. Your actual sales is 12,000 units. So the revenue is what? 10 multiplied by 12,000 will give you what? Yes. So let me put it clearly to avoid too many questions. So 10 multiplied by 12,000, we have it as 120. If you don't know where we derive our 10, go and look for it in the question. If you don't know where we get the 12, go and look for it in the 12,000 is in the question. Now, let's take it further. To determine our variable cost, our flexed variable cost, in terms of material, the question now is, what is the material cost per unit in terms of our budget? Direct material cost per unit in terms of our budget. The total direct material is what? $50,000. To get the cost of direct material for 1 unit will be what? It will be 50,000.
5 naira.
Yes, 5 naira. 50,000 divided by 10,000 units. You have what? 5 naira. 5 naira. So in relation to the flex, we said flex budget is a budget that is adjusted to match actual level of activity. Our actual level of activity is what? 12,000 units. So $5 multiplied by 12,000 for direct material will give us what? Let me show the workings. 50,000 divided by 10,000 units will give us 5. 5 multiplied by actual level of activity will give us what? 60,000. Yes. I'm showing the working to avoid questions.
So like, please mute your mic. So yes, so like, mute your mic, please.
Please, once you unmute yourself and you discover it's making noise, you just help us to mute it. Yes. Once you unmute and you discover your environment is noisy, it's not edible for others, it's not edible to our hearing, just be fine. Just mute yourself. So for labor, I will call someone to help me derive the flex budget for labor. So somebody will help me determine the flex budget value for labor. Kelani Chinwe.
Yes.
You're raising up your hand?
Yeah, for the determining the flex budget for labor.
Yeah.
Please help me go to the question.
Okay.
So based on the direct labor, so we are going to do 25 divided by 10 units. That's for production. 25,000 divided by 10,000 units. That's 2.5. So that will not be 12,000 times 2.5.
All right. So that is it. It's as simple as that. But once you don't know it, it will be like climbing a mountain. Once you don't know it, it will look and see, what is this? What kind of stress is this? So everything in ICANN, once you know it, it won't be difficult. But once you don't know it, you don't know the basic idea to unlock those things, to look and see.
Hello, I can't hear anything.
Sorry, it's from your side.
I think it's your network.
I'm trusting God that we'll overcome all these issues of I can't hear I can't see your screen. So we have 2.5 multiplied by 12,000.
That's
You get that?
30,000.
You have it as 30,000. 30,000. So for variable overhead, somebody will help me again.
15,000.
Okay, somebody is there already. 15,000.
So for variable overhead, it is 12,500 divided by 10,000 units. That is 1.25 times 12,000 units. That is 15,000.
Yeah. So, okay. 12,000 units. We have it as 15,000. So the total variable cost will be what for flex budgets?
105,000.
105,000. So the contribution will be what?
15,000.
15,000. And the profits and the fixed cost will be what?
12,000.
No, we are still working in line with the budget. We are working in line with our budget. We are adjusting our activity to suit our budget. So the fixed cost in our budget, the fixed overhead will still suffice here. Will still be what we are making, 10,000. So the profit will be what?
5,000.
Profit will be 5,000. Profit will be 5,000. So now we are to compare flex budgets with our actual to see if there is variance. To see if there is variance. To see if there is variance. So the variance now. For revenue, we are comparing flex and actual. Let's see what the question is saying. To prepare a flex budgets, calculate the variance between actual and flex budgets, and summarize in the form suitable for management. So what we are doing already, we are summarizing it already. So variance in terms of revenue, the difference between flex budget and actual is what?
2,000 adverse.
2,000. Is it adverse?
Favorable now.
It's money.
Favorable. Revenue. Sorry.
This is ego owo kudi.
Favorable.
So when you get more money, is it a disadvantage?
Advantage.
An advantage.
So comparing material, flex budget is 60, actual is 60. Any variance?
No.
Zero.
No variance.
Zero variance.
Yes. Comparing the labor, flex budget 30, actual 28.5. Any variance?
Yes, favorable.
1.5.
Favorable. 1.5.
Variable overhead. Variable overhead. 15,000, 15,000. Any variance? No.
No.
So moving to the fixed cost. Let's see the fixed cost. Is there any variance between the
1.5 favorable?
Is that favorable?
1,000.
1,000.
Fixed cost is 1,000. Contribution is 1.5.
Okay.
I'm not solving
No,
for
it's adverse.
Is what
1,000 adverse.
Adverse.
So is it adverse or favorable?
Adverse.
Adverse. So now the total variance when you 2,000 favorable plus 1,500 favorable less 1,000 adverse will give us what?
2,500 favorable.
2,500
2,500 favorable. Now, let me go back to the question. Let me do something. Let me ask a question now. Now, the question is this.
Mohammed, I beg, mute your mic.
The question is this. As a production manager, haven't taken a look at this question without the solution. You actually make a budget in terms of direct material to be $50,000 to incur $50,000. In reality, you incur $60,000. As the general manager, what will you do to the production manager? Because you've not taken your time as a general manager to solve, to see the reason for variance, but just having an abstract view of this, that we actually make provision for 50,000 on direct material, but we ended up spending 60,000. You, as the production manager, what would be your response to the general manager?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I will call him and tell him to make inquiries of the materials he will use before making budgets.
Okay. Now, let me take it further. You, as the production manager, you actually know the reason why you use more material. So I'm expecting a very clear answer. The answers are clearly stated in the question. Yes. So you actually make a budget for what? 50,000 units, $50,000, but you expended what? $60,000. So Abiodun Michael. Victoria Ogu.
Okay, so I think why this thing increased was because of the unit of production.
Yes,
Unit
that
of
is
production
just
became 12,000 units. That's why.
yes,
Why we
because
actually budgeted 10,000.
yes, because there was more production, more units produced than budgeted. So we will definitely need to use more materials, So the questions can come in diverse ways. They can just give you an extract of standard costs and actual costs, an extract, and make it in a scenario format, and ask you to write a report, yes, to either the production manager, either the general manager, and it can come in a way you'll be required to advise on what to do. So when you see such questions, the answers are in the question already. Yes, I was discussing with some person yesterday. There is this question on lean information. It's a past question in one of the ICANN point finders. I know as at that time, it's a recent one, I think it's 2024, May 2024, if I'm not mistaken. It's a theoretical question. But that theory question, there were paragraphs explaining what lean is all about, explaining the futures of lean, but lean is not clearly stated in the passage. Yes, but from the passage, if you read carefully, you'll be able to respond to that question. Even if that is your first time of hearing that word, lean information. Talking about the attributes or principles of lean information. So once you see scenario questions, then you can take your time, study it, and you'll be able to infer from that question the answers, the appropriate answers. So don't always get frightened when you see such questions. Yes. So as far as this question is concerned, there is a question I'm looking for in the Pathfinder that is similar to this. Similar to this. Once you get it, you look for your variance. You get it, you look for your variance. So in case I didn't see it, go and look for it. You're the one writing the exam. But if I want to locate it, I will locate it anyway, but I might not have that time. So please, this is flex budget. When you see flex budget, you relate it with the actual activity level. It's not something difficult. Yes. Some people are still raising up their hand. Abiodun Michael, Yakubu Yusuf, anything?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
I want to ask, is it that we can only relate flexible budget with actual budget, not fixed budget? That's one. Then number two, how do you get 10,000 for fixed for flexible budget in fixed for fixed cost? How do you get 10,000 naira?
Now, in relation to flex budget, you are flexing your budget, your existing budget, in relation to the actual output. Now, for fixed overhead, since we are still working in line with our budget, the fixed cost still remains same for flexed budget. For flex budget. So it's not, there's not any calculation there. It's just for you to know that, okay, you are relating your flex budget with your fixed. So the fixed cost in your budget still remains for the flex budget. So depending on the question, you can compare your flex budget with your fixed budget, but definitely you always make reference to your actual. From the definition, it's clear that flex budget is a budget that is redrafted to suit actual activity level. So if you are flexing your budget, it shows that you want to see the position of your original budget in line with your actual activity level. So from the definition of flex budget, once you flex your original budget to suit your actual activity level, the comparison will be in line with your actual and your flex. Is that fine, sir?
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I get it.
All right. The ball is in your court. So many questions for you to practice and to get better. The more you solve questions, the more you get better. The more you see things different from the previous questions you've solved. So once you solve questions over and over again, once you get to the hall, you'll be fine. But once you don't solve questions, you've not laid your hands on different versions of questions, it might be something different. So please try and solve questions over and over again, and all will be fine. Somebody is still raising up, and Abiodun Michael, Divine Love. These are the last questions before I move to the to other things. Hello, sir. How did you get 100,000 as revenue under fixed budget? It's clearly stated. Sales is what? 10,000 units. How much are you selling one unit? 10 naira, $10. $10 times 10,000 units. You get 100,000. So that is it. So if for any question related to this question, please kindly go back and watch the YouTube. Let's forge ahead. Abiodun Michael.
Sorry to cut you, sir. The question, that flex budget that we calculated, you said 50,000 divided by 10,000. So that 10,000 now, is it based on the sales per unit or is based on the production? Because both of the figures are 10,000. Sorry, I joined the class late, so I was just able to jot down, but I don't know which of the 10,000, just in case, because the figures are actually the same, both for the sales per unit and then also for the production in units.
Okay, it's a good one. So that when you see it in another form, yes, it's based on the production.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Sir. Hello, sir.
I'm with you.
Sorry, is that
I
for
just wanted
all?
to add.
Is that
I
for
just
all?
wanted to add. I just wanted to add so that she'll be clear. Material, labor, all those ones are relating to production. So that case of next time she'll be clear. So when you
All
are
right.
saying a material labor, it's not relating to production.
All right, thank you. Somebody's asking me, is that all?
It's not all. Sorry, sir. My own is just a simple question. Since we are relating flexed budget to actual production, in our fixed budget, why didn't we use 11,000 naira instead of the 10? We are now using 10,000 naira. The definition is we are just based on actual level of production.
So what are you, the fixed budget, is it in relation to activity? Is it not fixed? Is it changing based on what you produce?
Okay, I see it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we'll quickly talk about risk and uncertainty. Risk and uncertainty is an interesting topic that is real. And there are beautiful questions in the ICANN Pathfinder related to this topic. One of the questions that I will never forget is the question of a local football club where a ticket is being sold, and it involves probability, and it involves quite a number of things. Over and over again, every diet, you see students asking, how is this being solved? Because it requires critical thinking. Yes, that question, a local football club. And there's another one on probability that involve yes, 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 no, 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 no. Yes, it means you must recall back those your probability knowledge in your secondary school. You must bring them back. So there are beautiful questions on this topic. They are beautiful in the sense that you have to be very strong to answer those questions. They are not difficult, but you must be able to think well. Critical thinking is required to solve those questions. I believe if you've been writing PM, this is not your first time of writing PM, you should have seen those questions. You have seen those questions. Yes, but let's pick it from a simple point. Risk and uncertainty. Risk and uncertainty. This topic is a topic discussed irrespective of the course you study. If you study business admin, economics, accounting, banking and finance, I believe there should be a course at your A level where they've actually talked about risk. And for those that are involved in betting, all these Niger bet people, they are also involved in, they do take risk. Yes, they take risk. So what is risk? Let's start from that point. What is risk?
Risk is the probability of occurrence of events.
Okay, that risk is the probability of occurrence of events. Okay. So that event, okay.
Risk can be probability of failure.
Okay, that risk is probability of failure. Okay, it means you are very sure that there is failure and there is pass, isn't it?
Sir.
Yes, Victoria?
Risk is the probability of an event from occurring.
Okay. Well, my question is, what is that event? Can you give a scenario?
Event can be an outcome. Outcome of anything.
Outcome of anything. So the outcome can be positive or negative, right?
Yes.
Yes, it can be favorable or non-favorable.
Yes, that is where I want us to drive at.
Yes.
Yes. When you say risk is this, is that, you must be able to know, if I'm taking these risks, this is the result. If I'm not taking it, this is the result. So let me just put that risk refers to situation where the possible outcomes are known. Yes, where the possible outcomes are known and their probabilities can be measured or estimated. So the probability, the risk of not going to school is this, and the risk of going is this. So risk refers to situations where the possible outcomes are known. So there are characteristics of risk. One of the characteristics of risk is that future outcomes are uncertain. You are taking a risk, but you don't know if it will be a failure or successful. But one thing with risk is that probabilities can be assigned. The probability of throwing a fair coin and you having a tail or a head is what? What is the result? What is the answer?
50%. No?
Yes, that is 1/2.
1/2, yes.
It's 50%. So another characteristics of risk is that risk can be managed through strategies. Risk can be managed through strategies. Now, what are some of the strategies you can use to manage risk? Let's hear.
Mitigation.
No, when you say mitigation, mitigation means reduction of risk. Reduce, for you to mitigate, it means measures you are taking to reduce that risk. So it's just English. Mitigation is English.
Like insurance, hedging.
Introduction of internal control measure.
Budget.
Know your strength and weaknesses. Know your strength and weaknesses.
True
Before you don't take
planning.
the risk.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, so risk can be managed through strategies like one, insurance. Insurance. Yes. Though in Nigeria, in Africa, some of us don't actually believe in that. We believe putting your money in insurance is not worthwhile, but it's very important. Yes, it's good for you to have an insurance policy. So one of the measures to mitigate, let me borrow that word again, to mitigate risk, to ameliorate risk is through one, insurance. And another one is through diversification. For some of us that have done portfolio theory, you'll be doing that in SFN. It's what we call diversification of risk. Now, when you have a portfolio, collections of security, when one security is going down, the other should be going up. And that will mitigate the risk you are experiencing in the other form of investment. So it means when you have your resources, when you invest in real estate, you invest in shares, in stocks, things like that, you are spreading your risk. That is diversification. So that when one is not favorable, one will be favorable. So you won't feel the shock as much because you spread your eggs in different baskets. So that is one way of managing risk. Another way is through hedging. Still, this will be discussed further when you move to SFM. Hedging. Hedging has to do with guiding against the rise or fall of foreign exchange. So you can decide to to hedge against dollar by buying something today that will likely tend to rise tomorrow. So when you buy today at so dollar, if the dollar should rise tomorrow, that is not your business. My screen is clearly on up. So somebody is saying he or she can't see my screen. It's up. So, and one thing with risk is that it is often based on historical data or statistical analysis. So you can measure risk. You can measure risk based on trend analysis. Based on trend analysis. I'm just saying what I'm saying. All what I'm saying is not in my slide. So somebody is saying the screen is not up, is not moving. I'm not moving my screen yet. So just listen. So risk is based on historical data or statistical analysis. Yes. For example, for those that are engaged in Man U and Arsenal, when you want to bet, though I don't bet, but I used to learn from them. Like one of the questions in Icon Pathfinder, I sent to one of my close person that I know is into those things. Please help me solve based on your knowledge of betting. Yes. So that let me see how you can apply that to the reality of or to Icon question. So when you want to play those games, they will give you the history of those teams. Yes. How they have played with each other. Head to head. Yes. How Arsenal have played with Man U and they've overcome Man U over time. How Man U have. So if you want to now put your money, you follow those statistics. So sorry, I'm using that example. Yes. So let's move to uncertainty. What is uncertainty? Let me hear. Uncertainty.
I think uncertainty is not clearly to define all the possible outcomes.
Okay.
It means outcomes are not predictable.
Can you hear me?
Nika. Mohammed Utman, want to speak?
Yes. Just like when an outcome, the outcome of an event is not known, it's not certain.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Olusoji. Olusoji.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Uncertainty is a situation whereby the possible outcome of an event cannot be predicted and is as a result of absence of probability.
All right. Thank you very much. So that is it. So please, on this topic, kindly read this topic in Icon Pathfinder, in Icon Study Pack. It's very important. Yes, I'll be sending some questions related to this topic. So if you don't have good understanding of what we're discussing, you might find it difficult to solve. There'll be very simple questions, so that when you now go to Icon Pathfinder, you now see the pleasant ones with great delicacies. So uncertainty exists when future outcomes are unknown and probabilities cannot be reliably assigned. So risk, you can predict the outcome. For uncertainty, the outcomes are unknown. You don't know if you are to decide to fly to the moon, to the Mars, to Venus. You don't know what will happen. Yes, so uncertainty exists when future outcomes are unknown and probabilities cannot be reliably assigned. So some characteristics of features of uncertainty is that no past data or reliable models to estimate outcomes, and it is difficult to predict or control. And it requires judgment, intuition, and flexibility in decision making. So, for example, a company entering an entirely new market with no historical data is engaging itself in uncertainty. The impact of a global pandemic on industries before it happens, that is uncertainty. When government policy changes affecting business unpredictably, that is uncertainty because it has not happened before. So we don't know the result, the outcome that these will lead us to. So let's quickly run ahead. So based on this slide, that decision making involves making decisions now which will affect future outcomes which are unlikely to be known with certainty. So risk exists where a decision maker has knowledge that several possible outcomes are possible, usually due to past experience. So this past experience enables the decision maker to estimate the probability or the likely occurrence of each potential future outcome. So uncertainty exists when the future is unknown and the decision maker has no past experience on which to base predictions. So whatever the reasons for the uncertainty, the fact that it exists means that there is no rule as to how to make decisions. So for the examination, you are expected to be aware of and to apply several approaches that might be useful. So now, talking about risk, we have various attitudes towards risk. Some people smile when they see risk. Some people run away when they see risk. Some people are indifferent when they see risk. It means, what is your attitude towards risk? So risk preference. This is an approach taken to make the decision, and it depends on the decision maker's attitude to risk. We have a risk seeker. A risk seeker will be interested in the best possible outcome, no matter how small the change that may occur. So someone who is risk neutral will be concerned with the most likely or average outcome. So a risk avoider makes decision on the basis of the worst possible outcomes that may occur. So risk averse, still talking about risk preference, that is attitude towards risk. We have what we call risk averse. This is low tolerance for risk. Risk averse. So when you say somebody is risk averse, what does that connote? A risk averse person prefers safety over potential high returns. A risk averse person has low appetite for risk. So they prioritize security and stability, even if it means accepting lower rewards. Let me just be. I don't want to go there. Let me just be. I don't want to invest my money in it. And in life, the more risk you take, the more returns that comes to you. But as humans, we must learn to take calculated risk. So it's not every risk you see that you embrace. So risk averse. A risk averse person prefers low risk investment. Low risk investment like bonds, fixed deposits, or blue chip stocks. Yes. And a risk averse person avoids uncertainty and seek predictable outcome. A risk averse person will ask, have you done it before? Show me the evidence. Because a risk averse person has low tolerance for risk. A risk averse person also values stability and long-term financial security. For example, a retiree investing in government bonds instead of volatile stocks. And more so, a scenario where a company choosing to expand slowly and cautiously to avoid financial strain. These are scenarios of being risk averse. You're careful, not trying to lose your money. Yes. So the other form, again, is risk neutral. When you are risk neutral, it means you are at the middle, indifferent to risk. So a risk neutral person or organization only focuses on expected returns and does not care about the level of risk. So one thing with such persons or organization is that their decisions are purely based on mathematical expectations. So they are willing to take risks if the potential reward justifies it. It means if the reward justifies the risk, fine, let's go for it. So they are indifferent. So, and one thing with a risk neutral person or organization is that they don't actively seek or avoid risk. For example, let me go back to this betting something. A gambler betting if the odds are fair without considering the risk. You understand? Or a business person selecting project based on profitability, not risk factor. So you are only concerned about the reward and not the risk. So you are neutral, you are indifferent to risk. So if the business is profitable, fine, but you are not looking at the risk attached to the money you are giving out. Now, the other one is risk seeking. We have those that smile when they see risk, they dance when they see risk, they have high tolerance for risk. So a risk seeking individual actively pursue high risk, high reward opportunity. You know, the more risk, if you can take more risk, it means you are ready to get more reward. But when you are scared of taking risk, you are settling for low reward. But the bottom line is learn to take calculated risk. So a risk-seeking individual, I said, will actively pursue high risk, and in return, we get high reward for opportunities. And a risk-seeking person will often want to accept large losses for the possibility of big gains. So once you're a risk-seeking person, there will be times where you will lose money, and there will be time when you will gain high. So futures of risk-seeking individuals is that they thrive in uncertain environments. They thrive in uncertain environments, and they prefer speculative investment, like let's say cryptocurrencies, high volatility stocks, and the rest of them. And more so, they are willing to take losses in pursuit of big wins. Yes. So that is one thing about risk preference. And the three forms of individuals are the risk averse person, the risk neutral, and the risk seeking person or organization. So you can see my slide. I picked this from the ICANN study test. That's the nature of risk and uncertainty. We've explained all this, reducing uncertainty, what to do, talked about all this. Now, there's what we call expected outcomes. that one technique for comparing risk and return of different decision options is the use of expected outcome. Expected outcome. So expected values can be used to analyze information where risk can be assessed in terms of probabilities of different outcomes. So where probabilities are assigned to different outcomes, we can evaluate the worth of a decision as the expected value or weighted average of these outcomes. So when we talk about expected value, is probability of each outcome multiplied by the value of the outcomes. So we'll be seeing a question where we'll see probability and we'll see the outcome. So probability multiplied by the outcome is the expected outcomes. So an expected outcome refers to the anticipated result of an action, event, or decision. And this is based on probability and past data. Yes, it is based on probability and past data. So you can see the formula, expected value is equal to summation px, where the probability of each outcome, p represents the probability of each outcome, and x, the value of each outcome. So an EV is a measurement of weighted average value. That is, EV is a measurement of weighted average value. For example, you can have a set of probability and set of expected outcome. You can have demand low, medium, high. When demand is low, what is the probability? Let's say 30%. What is the expected revenue when demand is low? 50,000. When demand is medium, probability is 50%, which can be same as 0.5. The expected revenue will be what? Will be at that point, let's say it's 100. And when demand level is high, probability, let's say, is 20%, 0.2, and expected revenue, let's say, is 150. Now, if you want to get the expected revenue now, what we'll do, let me just show something. Let me show it. Let me show an example here. Let's assume this is demand. This is probability, and this is expected revenue. Now, we have various levels of demand. Let's say low. And when it is low, the probability is 30%. And this 30% is same as what? 0.3. And the expected revenue at that point is 50,000. And when it is medium, probability, it's 50%. This will be 0.5. And expected revenue, this is just a scenario. So don't be thinking, where am I getting these values from? I'm just trying to portray something. So high, when demand is high, probability, let's say, is 20%. Probability is 20%. And expected revenue, it's 150,000. So this will be 0.2. 0.2. So for you to get the expected revenue, or the expected outcome based on this scenario, what are we going to do? It will be this probability multiplied by the expected revenue. We get the outcomes at each level. So this is what we do. When you see questions like this, it's just 0.3 multiplied by what? 50,000. We have it as what? This will be what?
$15,000.
It's 15,000. Just want to confirm. Still on there. Then these will be what? 0.5 multiplied by 100,000.
That's 50,000.
50,000. And this will be
30,000.
50,000.
multiplied by 150. So we have it as what? 30,000. We have it as. So the expected revenue based on probability at each level is as seen on the screen. Yes, but this is not the major points I want us to look at. There are more serious issues. Yes. Yeah. So let's take a look at this example. That's expected value. A business has to decide which of 3 projects to select for investments. The 3 projects are mutually exclusive. Now, when we talk about mutually exclusive, what do we mean? Mutually exclusive, you must understand English to pass PM. Mutually exclusive is what?
None of the project depends on one another. None of the project depends on one another.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So, mutually exclusive refers to events or choices that cannot happen at the same time. Yes, if one event occurs, the other must not occur. So, take note of that. So, the project do not involve any initial capital expenditures. The expected annual profits from investing in each of the projects depend on the state of the market. The following estimates of annual profits, operational cash flows have been prepared. We have state of the market, declining, static, expanding. The probability of declining is what? 0.4, static 0.3, expanding 0.3. We have project 1. Project 1, when it is declining, it's what? You're putting in 100. When it is static, you have what? The profit is what? 200. When it is expanding, the expected annual profit is what? Is 900. Project 2, when it is declining, it's 0. Expected annual profit is 0. When it is static, it's 500. When it is expanding, it's 600. Project 3, when it is declining, is 180. When it is static, is 190. And when it is expanding, it's 200. This type of table is called payoff table or payoff matrix. So in most questions, you would need to prepare something like this, payoff table, to analyze the scenario given. So the payoff table, it shows all the possible payoffs or results from different possible decisions or strategies. So the point is this. Project 1, yes, is similar to what I just displayed here. Project 1. Now, project 1, when it is declining, what is your profitability or your expected profit? It will be what? 0.4 multiplied by what? 100. When it is what? Declining. When it is static, it will be 0.3 multiplied by what? 200. When it is expanding, it will be 0.3 multiplied by 900. You get the expected profits at that point. Project 2, it will be 0.4 at declining, 0.4 multiplied by 0. Static, 0.3 multiplied by 500. Expanding, 0.3 multiplied by 600. And for project 3, same. Declining, 0.4 multiplied by 180. Static, 0.3 multiplied by 190. Expanding 0.3 multiplied by 200. So you can see it here. Project 1 declining 0.4 multiplied by multiplied by 100, you have 40. Static 200 by 0.360, expanding. So you can see that this is the expected profits in relation to each of the scenarios: declining, static, expanding. For project 2, same profit multiplied by profit probability you have at various levels in which the market exists. And for project 3, same thing. So based on expected values, project 1 should be selected because it has the highest EV of annual profits. So the annual profits for project 1 is 370. That is when you add everything expected value in terms of profitability, 370. Project 2, 330. Project 3, 189. So if you have to select, if you have to make your decision, you have to go with project 1 based on the expected value. Yes, this is what I'm interested in the most. Now, in making decision, there are various rules. There are various rules involved in making decision. We have what we call maximas, maximin, minimas. We have what we call maximas, maximin, and minimas. These three concepts I've just mentioned is just to tell you that when you are faced with decision making in the worst case scenario, what will you do? When we are faced with decision making in the best case scenario, what will you do? When you are faced with decision making at the neutral level, what will you do? So let's look at Maxima's decision rule. What is this rule all about? Maxima's decision rule. Based on what I have on the screen, I said this is a decision rule based on the view that the decision maker should select the course of action with the best possible payoff. With the best, it means maximus, the best among the various options you have is what you have to go with. So this best among the decisions has to do with the highest possible profit, the highest possible reward in a set of options. So this approach is based on the view that decision makers should seek the highest return, assuming that events turn out in the best way possible. That is based on your expectation. It works like that. So it means you have to choose the best. So the Maximal's decision rule can be described as a decision rule for the risk seeker. For the risk seeker. So the Maximal's criterion is a decision-making strategy used under uncertainty, where a person or business chooses the option with the highest possible gain. So it is an optimistic approach that assumes the best case scenario will happen. This is Maximus. So in summary, let me just give some highlights, some keynotes of this. The Maximus decision rule, it is an optimistic approach. That is, it assumes the best possible outcome will occur. And more so, is a risk-seeking behavior. It ignores potential losses and focuses only on maximum gains. More so, it's used in decision making. It applies in business, investment, and strategy planning. And it's best for high risk takers. Yes, that is for entrepreneurs, aggressive investors. it's best for them. They often use this strategy. So take note of this. We are heading somewhere. So also we have what we call maximing. Maximing decision rule. This decision rule is based on the view that the decision maker will identify the course of action with the highest expected return under the worst outcome. It means where you have losses all through, which of the loss is better? It means you go for that. It means among those losses, there are degrees of losses. Maybe you make a loss of 200, a loss of 100, a loss of 50, a loss of 30. Okay, let me just give a clear example. Let me ask a question regarding this. Let's show something. Let's give a practical scenario. We have let's say product A, product B, product C, product D. Let's see. Okay, profits or loss. We're having loss all through. We're having loss all through. Product C, we're having loss likewise. Product D, so we're having loss likewise. So now, as an investor, you are faced with this situation. Which of the products will you invest in based on maximum decision rule?
Product C.
Product C.
Okay, product
Product
C.
C. Product C. Product C.
Product C.
Because
Product C.
we have less loss. Yes, regarding that. So the maximum decision rule or the maximum criterion is a decision-making strategy used under uncertainty, likewise, where a person or business chooses the option with the best worst case scenario. Yes, the best worst case scenario. It is a pessimistic approach. Yes, unlike the first one, this is a pessimistic approach that assumes that the worst will happen and select the alternative that provide the least bad outcome. The least bad outcome. And that is why we are saying that 5 is the best here, because it's giving us the least best outcome. So let's move further. We have what we call the maximum. Maximum. This, okay, we'll talk about this. Which one do we just talk about? Yes, we talk about maximum. Yes. So the other one is minimas. This decision rule is based on the concept of regret. That is, regret is the difference between the profits that will be earned by choosing one option and the profits that would have been earned if the most profitable option had been selected, given a particular outcome. So the minimas criterion is a decision-making strategy used under uncertainty to minimize the maximum possible regret. So it focuses on reducing the worst case loss relative to the best decision that could have been made. So this approach is useful for risk-averse individuals and businesses that want to avoid making the wrong decision with significant regret. So all these, we'll see examples. There are examples related to them. let's see. Let's just see what this example is talking about. Constructing a payoff table. Now, a shopkeeper must decide how many boxes of apples to buy each day. A box of apples earns revenue of 400 naira and costs 250 naira. Now, what will be the profit if I'm to sell a box?
150.
Good. The profit will be 150. So demand is uncertain and could vary from 30 boxes to what? 10 boxes. This is the range. So any apples that are purchased but not sold will be thrown away at the end of the day. The shopkeeper has decided that he will buy 10 boxes. This is a case. 20 boxes. This is another scenario. Or 30 boxes each day. And these are the only 3 options he wants to consider. Let's see. Is that the end of the question? Okay. So to solve this question, if the shopkeeper can only meet the demand of its customer, maybe it can only supply 10 boxes in a day, how are we going to treat this? Even when your customer are requesting for 20 boxes and you only have 10, will you be able to give them 20 boxes? No. When your customers are requesting for 30 boxes, but what you have is 10 boxes, will you be able to give them extra 20? The answer is no. You cannot give what you don't have. So we're going to look at a case where you only have 10 boxes to give, but you are getting demand for 20 boxes and 30 boxes. What will be the result? Let's see. This is it. So if you have 10 boxes and you have demand for 10, for 20, and for 30 boxes. Now, if you are to sell 10 boxes and the price of one box is 400 from the question, if you are selling 10 boxes, what will be your revenue?
4,000.
4,000. This is it. 4,000. Revenue for 10 boxes will be 4,000. Now, the point is this again. My customers are requesting for 20 boxes, but I don't have extra 10 to give. How much will I sell here? Still 10. It will be 400 times 10. It will still be 4,000. I'm explaining this because the question in the icon pathfinder is similar to this, but with some kind of touch. So you have to think critically to know that you have to apply this concept. So that is why I'm taking my time to explain this now. So if demand, you are getting a demand for 20 boxes, but you don't have it, what can you offer? 10 boxes. So 400 times 10 boxes will still give you 4,000. Now you're getting a demand for 30, but what you only have is 10. What will happen? You can only give 10. You don't have extra 20 to give. So it will be 10 multiplied by what? 400. You have 4,000 again. So the cost of producing 10 boxes is what? At each of the level is 10 multiplied by 250 is 25. So this is constant all through. And the revenue is constant likewise because you only have 10 boxes to give. So the profit at each level will be what? Will be 1.5. Revenue less cost, 1.5. At 10, if it is 20, you don't have 10. So revenue, profits all through is 1.5. So demand greater than 10 cannot be met. So the profit does not change. So this is a case of 10 boxes. Now, before I show the slide of 20 boxes, now let's now look at it. Let's say you have 20 boxes in your store and you have a demand for 10 boxes. What will happen? What will happen?
So we didn't get you, please.
There'll be a loss for the remaining 10 boxes because it was stated in the
The
question
revenue
that
will still
the
be
apples that
4,000.
the apples that were not sold will be thrown away or something.
Yes, yes. So in that question in the Pathfinder, don't mind me, I'm referring to that question seriously. That's the newspaper. Okay, let me check for the question. That the newspaper or the ticket that will be unsold will be given out at a lower price. It means you'll be making a loss. Be making a loss. So yes, what she has said is rightly correct. So let's move on. If I have 20 boxes and my customers are demanding for 20 boxes, what will be my revenue?
8,000.
It will be
8,000.
okay, 20 times, yes, 8,000. Yes. What will be my cost? The cost will what?
1,000.
That is 250.
5,000.
5,000.
Yes, 5,000. Now let's take it further. I have 20 boxes, but I'm getting a request of 30 boxes. What will happen?
Your revenue will still be 8,000.
Okay.
And the
So
cost will still be 5,000.
yes, the cost will still be 5,000. Very good. Yes. So you can see it. The cost will be 5,000 all through. In this first case, we have a demand of 10, but we have customer requesting for 10 boxes, but we already have or produced 20 boxes and nobody to buy the extra 10. It means there will be a loss because our cost of production will be greater than the revenue. So that is why we can see a loss here. And if demand is 20, it means I'm making 8,000, 20 times 400 per box, 8,000. The cost of producing 20 boxes is what? It's 5,000. 8,000 less 5,000 will give us 3,000. And for if demand is you're getting a demand of 30, but what you have in your store is 20. You can't give what you don't have. You can always still give your 20. So it means 8,000 less 5,000, you have 3,000. So demand greater than 20 cannot be met. So the profit does not change. That is the. So I believe you can solve for 30 boxes now.
Yes, sir.
You can, yes, 30 boxes is very clear. Yes. You can solve for 30 boxes. So let me see. Yes. So a payoff table can be constructed as follows to show the payoffs associated with different number of boxes bought and different demand levels. So this is it. It means the profits when you buy 10 boxes, the profit is what? All through 1.5. This is the summary of all what we've done upward here. Is what they are showing here now. That when you buy 10 boxes, your profit is what? All through 1.5. So this is it. When you buy 20 boxes and when you sell 20 boxes all through, your profit will be what? This is it. When you sell 30 boxes all through, your profit will be this. So they will now ask you a question. Let's see. Yes, there's a point I want us to arrive at. Yes. Okay. All right. So the point is this: when you construct this payoff table, and you can be asked that using the Maximus criterion, which decision are you going to make? Using the minimus criterion, which decision are you going to make? So I think we're going to call it a day here. Then I'll send a question. If I'm opportune tomorrow, we'll solve a question related to this. But before then, I'll quickly check for a question and forward to the platform. If you can analyze, fine. Then tomorrow when I come up, maybe by 7, we'll solve the question and we'll refer to other questions. So let me check for the question in the Pathfinder, a local football club. Though I will not solve that question. You have to solve it yourself. Then when you solve it yourself and you've made attempts, you can send it to me. Me, I have my solution already. Different from what they solve in the Pathfinder. But when you follow what is in the Pathfinder, you won't get it. You won't understand it. But I have my own solution that will give you the same results with what is in the Pathfinder. So I want to check for the question so that well, if you have your okay, yes, I've seen it. May 2023. The question is: a local football club has asked for your advice on the number of programs that should be printed for each game. The cost of printing and production of programs for each game, as quoted by the local printer, is 1 million plus 400 naira per copy. Advertising revenue, which has been agreed for the season, represents 800,000 naira for each game. Programs are sold for 150 naira each. A review of sales during the previous seasons indicate that the following pattern is expected to be repeated during the coming season of 50 games. We have number of programs sold. We have number of games. Programs not sold at the game are sold as waste paper to a paper manufacturer at 100 naira per copy. Now, assuming that the 4 quantities listed are the only possibilities, you are required to prepare a payoff table. You can see that. Prepare a payoff table. B, determine the number of programs that will provide the highest profit if a constant number of programs were to be printed for each game. Explain why you should buy 30,000 or 40,000 copies, assuming one of these is the most profitable quantity, despite the fact that the most probable sales are 20,000 copies per game. Calculate the profit which will arise from a perfect forecast of the numbers of programs which will be sold at each game. Discuss the major limitations at expected value criteria in decision making. So you can see the question. So you can attempt. I will send a question related to what we discussed and we'll solve when next we'll be meeting. Thank you very much. Have a pleasant week ahead.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. God bless you, sir. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.